I'd like to call tonight's regular meeting of council to order. Recommendation that the agenda for the regular council meeting of November 9th, 2020 be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Reinhauer, seconded by Councillor Adey. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3A, recommendation that the minutes of the special council meeting of October 26, 2020 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3B, recommendation that the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of October 26, 2020 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Skelton Morvan. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And item 3C, recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting of October 26, 2020 to be adopted. Moved by Councillor Reinhauer, seconded by Councillor Adey. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. First up, we have a report from our Chief Financial Officer regarding the September 2020 financial variance report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In general, revenues and expenses in the operating fund are in line with the same COVID-related caveats of previous reports. The utilities budgets are performing as budgeted with the exception of the water utility. It is expected there will be a deficit for the year by year end, given the reductions in commercial revenue experienced related to the pandemic. This, combined with the increased testing related to the water advisory issued in August and again at the end of October from the significant rainfall events, means we are projecting the deficit to be approximately $100,000 or 5% of the budget in the water utility. Some capital projects are continuing and others were in completion stages in September. We are still receiving the invoices for those. Presently, they are all within budget. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Questions? Okay, next we have a report from the Chief Financial Officer regarding the 2021 Community Enhancement Grants.
Every year, Council opens up the opportunity for a Community Enhancement Grant for the upcoming budget year. Given the current COVID-19 pandemic uncertainty, this year's recommendation from staff takes into account the need for flexibility, specifically with respect to cash awards. Staff have identified that a freeze in the amount awarded for 2021 applicants is warranted given the uncertainty and have provided specific recommendations to Council attached to the report as an aid. It is expected currently that there won't be an increase in taxes to provide the grants that have been recommended. The City received an application this year from the Salvation Army with respect to a capital renovation project whereby their food bank service on Fraser Street would be integrated into their Grenville Court location. We have included part of their request in our recommendation, but not the full amount given the size of the request and the uncertainty heading into 2021. However, we believe we can help raise the difference between the recommendation and the request. Staff suggest placing a fundraising thermometer on City Hall to bring awareness to the project and provide our citizens the opportunity to contribute with us towards the fulfillment of the request. The Northern Savings Credit Union has offered to fund the thermometer as a part of the fundraising effort. Anyone wishing to donate can do so at City Hall so we can recognize the milestones the community reaches as we climb the fundraising thermometer together. Council is asked to either accept staff's recommendation or direct staff as to which applicants will receive a community enhancement grant and the value of each grant awarded. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for the due diligence once again. I certainly appreciate the ability here to try to accommodate the Salvation Army. I think last year we gave a grant, although it was a new application to the Hospice Society. It was because it's a one-time capital type of event. Same thing with the Salvation Army, and that's great that you guys have been proactive and talked to the credit union, because I think that's a great idea to raise the rest of the funds, because I believe that's what's the total cost of that project, do you know?
The total project cost is $900,000, and what they had asked for from the city is $95,000. We've been able to recommend $15,000.
Right. Yeah. So, I think that's a good contribution, and getting other funders from the community, I think it's a good idea. I personally am in agreement with what's presented today. I would move that Council award the Community Enhancement Grant as presented by staff. Seconded by Councillor Adey. Discussion. Councillor Niche.
Once again, just thank you for your work on that. I mean, it's a tough one every year. We've kind of been in this position every year for these community enhancement grants that, you know, these new applicants come forward, and we'd love to help them all out, but every year we're kind of doing our best to try and keep taxes down, try not to have increases. And this year we got a real kick in the pants with COVID, and it's been probably a little bit harder this year for the finance department to try and keep things working in the order they should. So I think we're kind of in a unique position compared to a lot of communities that we're actually kind of holding the line on tax increases, and during COVID we're actually projecting to be not too bad off, but we will find out more for our next budget. But I think for now, as presented, I am in agreement that that's the way we should proceed.
Other comments? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item C, we have a recommendation that Council proclaim November 15th to 21st, 2020 as Métis Awareness Week. Moved by Councillor Scott Morvan, second by Councillor Niche. Any comments? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, next we have another report from our Chief Financial Officer regarding the Water Utility Management Amendment Bylaw number 3463.
Actually, I'm going to consolidate my report for all three bylaws that will be in front of council. This would be in respect of the water utility management, the solid waste utility management, and also the sanitary and storm sewer utility management bylaws. The water, sewer, and solid waste rate bylaws will be expiring at the end of this year. To ensure these utility funds maintain their self-sufficiency and do not need repayable contributions from the operating fund in the future, the attached bylaws provide proposed increases to maintain the liquidity of each fund over the next 4 years. The proposed increases are as follows. Solid waste will increase 2% per year. Water will increase 4% in 2021 and 2% each year thereafter. Sanitary and storm sewer will be held at 0% increase in 2021 and 2% increase each year thereafter. The water utility increase is higher in the first year due to the increased underground repairs experienced. The sewer utility is not suffering the same issue, and so to offset the overall increase to a user's utility fees, the first year has been held constant in that utility. Council is asked to introduce and give first, second, and third readings to each of the utility management amendment bylaws.
Okay, just a quick procedure question. The way it's written on the agenda, is it okay to read it out without having to do separate 1, 2, 3 for each of the bylaws? Okay. So the recommendation is whereas council is empowered according to section 194 of the community charter to by bylaw impose fees payable in respect to services of the city, and whereas the fees and charges associated with the existing utilities bylaw are expiring December 31st, 2020. Now therefore council introduce and give first, second, and third readings to the Water Utility Management Amendment Bylaw number 3463 2020, the Sanitary and Storm Sewer Utility Management Amendment Bylaw number 3464 2020, and Solid Waste Management Amendment Bylaw number 3465 2020. Moved by Councillor Ady, seconded by Councillor Niche. Discussion?
So the utilities are self-funding, which I assume means that they are meant to contain their own costs within their own budgets. And what I'm hearing is that because the demands on those budgets are such that there's going to be increased costs, we're looking for the increase to cover that. Is there an alternative? And so, for example, if we chose not to do this, where does that extra money, where would that extra money come from? And how, in terms of process, how would that work?
Well, there is no grants for operating utilities. So we would probably have to drag into our surplus. And we don't have a lot of surplus in many of the funds. The sewer does have some surplus, but we've been funding some of our capital out of that in order to reduce and keep the fees down in our utilities. There really actually is no other area for us to be able to find other funds for it. It is a user fee based funding system.
And just to follow up, it would be fair to say that the things that we're going to be paying for are not really choices. These are things that absolutely have to be done in order to maintain those services.
That's correct. So all of the workers that keep the water flowing, that keep the storm and sanitary pipes in good repair, and any kinds of repairs that come up. For instance, if there's a break and there's a backup, that sort of thing. The funding takes care of the costs and the use of equipment for those particular repairs and ongoing maintenance. So going over to our water utility, for instance, when our workers go over to go in and do any of the testing, any of the disinfection, all of that is paid for out of the utility fees. And same with the solid waste. When you have our solid waste disposal technicians come and pick up the solid waste from everybody's homes and some of the commercial businesses, the fees help to cover that. But there's also obviously capital components in there. It covers things like supplies that are necessary in order to maintain the utilities and all of the fuel and electricity out at Public Works, that sort of thing, and of course the management thereof.
Councillor Cunningham.
Okay, we just received over $2 million for COVID startup. Can some of that money be funneled into our utility funds to ease this for the future?
We have actually just received that, and that was before that we received it right after the proposal for the utility fees. Most of that income we expect will go towards things like the reduced user fees that we're collecting on our airport ferry. We're operating the Calbe Marina. We're also operating the transit services, and not everybody has come back to using those services. So we need to do we need to budget an allocation for all of that. And the only area, as mentioned in my variance report, that where one of the utilities was reduced was really in our commercial water services. So whether or not we can go ahead and allocate some of the money towards the offset of that, we will have to understand from the province. Presently, the increases in the fees here do not propose to offset the expected or unexpected reductions in commercial water use in 2021.
I would think if we're having reduction in our fees coming in for our services, some of that money could be funneled into the actual services to alleviate some extra charges to our citizens. But, you know, unfortunately, if it came in, it's just starting up. If we postpone this this bylaw until staff could look into that, would that help in any way?
We could certainly postpone it. We could table it until the next council meeting, and I can go and certainly get some certainty around whether or not the grant funding can be used for utility fees.
And that would be okay with the finance department to table it for 2 weeks?
It is totally fine. We still have 2 more meetings.
Okay, so it has to be done by the end of the year.
Yes.
Okay, then I put forth a motion to table this into the next meeting.
Okay, seconded. Okay, all those in favor to table? Okay, motion's carried. So we'll table it, and then we'll get a sense, because I know that there's some requirements from the funding that's come in from the 2.7, I believe we received. So we just need to see if we're allowed to use it for those purposes and see if staff can recommend something from us. If not, we'll reconsider this bylaw. Thank you. Okay, next we have some reports, questions or inquiries from members of council. We'll do Councillor Niche, then Councillor Cunningham, Councillor 80. Okay.
I was working on Kootenai quite a bit this year, and I've had a couple concerns raised. As far as there's a pullout area that's used across from the campground, that is being used as basically a truck stop. I've seen personally up to 4 semis there at the same time. They're using it at nighttime. They're using it during the daytime. They're running their reefers during the night while they sleep in their trucks, and they're also doing work on that area. And so my question is who is in control of that? Is that something that the city can do something about? I know there's signs posted, but the signs obviously aren't working. So what my thought is it something that we are able to make less access to for bigger vehicles, so that they can't use this as a truck stop and disturb, probably at least a half a dozen houses in the area that are being affected, where people are trying to sleep, and the noise is excessive. So I would just wondering if the city could look into it and see what our kind of control of that area is, or what we could do to maybe alleviate some of these problems, whether it's through bylaw or through placement of barricades to make it not accessible by semis. And the other one, I just got to say happy 10th birthday to my daughter.
And happy 10th birthday from all of us as well. On your first point, I think that's a highways issue, and then I think we could probably talk to the regional highways manager for that, eh?
Yes, we have been communicating with them already. We've had a few complaints come in through the administration office and have forwarded them to the highways department.
Okay, so we'll see if we can get some resolution there. Councillor Cunningham.
Okay, quick comment. There seems to be some confusion about the urban garden grant and, city's involvement in that and what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. So I'd like to request EcoTrust come before the next meeting to sort of put out what their plans are and explain it to people.
Yeah,
if that's possible.
absolutely. I think just for clarity's sake, council passed a resolution to apply for grant funding on their behalf at one of our previous council meetings. But now that grant's been received, I think tomorrow that EcoTrust is going to release a press release on more details. But I think it's warranted that EcoTrust would come to council and maybe do a presentation on what the project would look like and see some more details on the ground. So I think that definitely can be accommodated.
Thank you.
Councillor 80.
Yeah, I'd like to acknowledge that on Wednesday it's Remembrance Day, and that sometimes humorously, but often not, we've referred to 2020, the year 2020, as a rolling accident. But in this case, it is 2020, and yet the occasion remains important. I know as a teacher of history for many years, one of my most important goals was to make the sacrifice and the experiences of those who fought in the wars of this century somehow real to students who have no personal experience. And we are really one of the fortunes of our generation is that we have not faced that national catastrophe that is a world war and the commitments that are required. And so it's a little hard to translate that for people and make it real. So that's why Wednesday is very important. It's a gesture, and it's something that acknowledges the sacrifice that people made in times when really tough decisions were required of them. And they did so, and the outcome was to defend the way of life that we enjoy, to defend the democratic system that the 7 of us here are a part of. And if you pay any attention at all to events around the world, you realize that democracy can be a pretty fragile thing. I don't want to point fingers in any particular southern direction, but it seems to me that these issues are they're with us all the time, and I think remembering when wars were actually fought over these issues is really important. And so I want to acknowledge that, and the contribution of veterans with us and not with us to those causes. I also want to make sure that people understand the Northern View has an article which clarifies that we are indeed in 2020 and things have to be a little bit different. So I would ask the members of the community who are interested in events down at the Cenotaph on Wednesday to make sure they check out what modifications have been made to make that go as smoothly as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Eddy. And I know that as a member of the Canadian Rangers, we're going to be down there on Wednesday volunteering to do the race. But I think it's a maximum capacity of 50 people this time. So, yeah, definitely check out that article. Any further reports, Councillor Niche?
I just wanted to do a little shout out to our firefighters who, in the last little stretch of time here, have had to deal with a couple significant fires in our town, and you know, just give them kudos for you know, saving the people that they saved out of the building across from Tim Hortons there, and making sure that that building was contained to a fire in that building and not into the whole block going up, being there's a lot of older buildings there. And this morning having to deal with another fire of Love Electric, and because of the conditions and the wind and you know, that could have gotten out of hand fairly quickly, and I just want to give them a shout out for doing the great job they do for our fire hall that we have at our city. So thank you.
Any other comments from council? Okay, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Eddy, second by Councillor Randhawa. All those in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.